Let us turn now to Giotto's painting of the Epiphany. Contemplate it for a while. Enter into it and see what the painting is doing, how it is acting. A king kneels at the center of the lower edge of the panel. His presence and gesture are utterly convincing because his shape, the warm red color of his garment and the shapes of its folds, are all dense and heavy, pulling downward in accordance with his action. The king at the extreme right wears a much cooler red, a lighter, more airy rose color which, together with his shape and the folds in his cape, draws upward. The bright vertical event of the chartreuse king, with his columnar folds, is like a stake driven in between the two red kings, driving them apart, as it were the proximate cause of their differentiation in color, space, and movement. As the vermilion king pulls downward and to the left, the roseate king draws upward and to the right. The roseate king's backward inclination is balanced by the opposite pull of the taffy-like shape of red, which constitutes the couch on which the Virgin Mary reclines. The shape of this couch pulls up and away to the left, and the large portion of it beneath the Virgin's right arm magnetically attracts the related red of the kneeling king, so that his upper body leans in that direction, and we feel that magnetic pull which contributes so much emotion to the kneeling king's gesture. Cover the red couch, and the red king becomes much less dynamic. The vertical thrust of the chartreuse king continues in the posts of the stable. From this vertical, the dark blue shape of the Virgin's cloak swings out to the left with amazing force and velocity. Very swiftly, and yet very gradually, this shape decelerates as its contour describes the head and the upper arm, and then pulls around to give us the forearm and the piece of cloth held in the two hands, perfectly expressing the tender solicitude of the mother for her newborn son. The swing to the left of the dark blue cloak comes to rest in the dark brown shape of the shepherds, whose tonal value is closely related to that of the cloak. These shepherds, grouped thus with the middle plane figure of the Virgin, while they themselves stand in a more distant plane, stretch the pictorial space backward, and by the verticality and gestures, upward as well. The clockwise movement thus created back and up through space is assisted by the rotation of the stable, which Giotto establishes by oblique perspective, and by suppressing the contrast between roof and sky on the left, while emphasizing the corresponding contrast on the right. The angels nearly form a parallelogram, guiding our eyes around the top of the farthest spatial plane toward the right side of the painting. But it is not quite a parallelogram. The lowest angel breaks away from the implied figure and pulls the space downward on the right side. This downward pull is accomplished not only by the placement of this angel in relation to the implied parallelogram, but also by Giotto's astute phrasing of tones. While all four angels are held up and back by the delicacy of their contrasts, like exhalations of the golden sky. Ah, 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 ah. The lower angel has more contrast, and thus more tonal weight than the other three. Note that this angel occupies a pronounced triangle of gold leaf, which brings us down and forward again to the near plane where the king clad in roseate garments stands. We have described the main movement path, in which a crucial element is the tone value relation between the Virgin's dark blue cloak and the dark brown worn by the shepherds. There is another path, however, which departs from the axis of Mary's shoulders and swings around to the front plane in the curved arm of Saint Joseph. The blue sleeve echoes the blue mantle. This counterclockwise movement pulls against the clockwise one, holding near and far planes and volumes in equilibrium. Moreover, the swing of Joseph's blue-sleeved arm leads our eye to the shaded zone where the animals nestle, hardly noticeable because their tones blend with the shadow. Surprisingly and wonderfully, the head of the vermilion-clad king also blends with the shade. He, like the animals, recognizes his master and loses himself in adoration. Since this figure provided our entry into the painting, we are invited by Giotto to imitate this king in our prayer. In a masterpiece, the particular way the form moves is the key to the meaning.